Yeah, we are into international and continental talking points, and we've alluded to it a couple times throughout the show, but we're going to go backwards to bring you up to speed. Because from the 14th of September 2015 is where we're going to start. Further individuals and entities could be charged. Now, we did a couple of shows to do with the FIFA corruption scandal. If you want more background, check out some of our earlier shows on YouTube. We leave the live show archive up, and also iTunes, Mixcloud, Podomatic, Spreaker, and TuneIn Radio. We have our podcast up there, especially Mixcloud as well. With our previous podcast about the FIFA scandal. But we're going to take it from September 14th, 2015. More charges against individuals and entities are being considered as investigations of corruption within FIFA have expanded, says US Attorney General Loretta Lynch. In May, as we went over before, 14 officials and sports marketing executives were indicted in the US on racketeering charges involving more than £97 million, $150 million. Substantial evidence has been gathered so far, according to Lynch. Properties in the Alps have been seized in a separate Swiss investigation. The US authorities are working closely with their Swiss counterparts and held a joint news conference in Zurich to provide updates on their respective investigations into world football's governing body. The scope of our investigation is not limited, and we are following the evidence where it leads, said Lynch. I am grateful for the significant cooperation and substantial evidence that we have received from all quarters. In June, FIFA President Sepp Blatter announced he would resign less than a week after he was re-elected, saying his mandate did not appear to be supported by everyone. Lynch would not say whether Blatter, who's 79, is a target of the US investigation. The Swiss investigation is looking into bids for the 2018 and 2022 World Cups to be held in Russia and Qatar respectively. Swiss Attorney General Michael Lorber said 11 terabytes of information had been seized so far. I'd love to have a hard drive that big. But he added that 121 different bank accounts have been brought to the attention of the investigating task force, and said they were not even at half time in their investigation. Lorber confirmed that Swiss prosecutors will also investigate a FIFA contract into media rights to the 2010 and 2014 World Cups. Now, Caribbean media rights deal to be probed by the Swiss, just mentioned. The probe follows a news report that FIFA sold the rights for rates below market value to a Caribbean football organisation. FIFA said the agreement with the Caribbean group promised FIFA much more than the upfront fee. US and Swiss officials also reported on a wider FIFA inquiry, which we just mentioned. Now, it is one of them was the latest Swiss probe involves a 2005 contract to televise the 2010 and 2014 World Cups in parts of the Caribbean. Swiss broadcaster SRF reported that FIFA on September 14th also signed over the media rights to Caribbean Football Union, CFU, for $600,000. It said Jack Warner, yeah, okay, we can see where this is going, head of the CFU at the time, then transferred the rights to his own company and resold them in a deal worth between $15 million, £10 million, and $20 million. Okay, so from $600,000 to $20 to $20 million to between 15 and $20 million. Already suspicious. But anyway, SRF posted excerpts of the contract on its website that appeared to show the former FIFA boss Sepp Blatter and Mr. Warner signed it themselves. FIFA said in a statement that the CFU had promised more than the upfront fee, and that FIFA wants to receive half of any profits related to subcontracting the rights. The organisation also said it terminated the contract in 2011 after the CFU failed to meet its financial obligations or follow subcontracting requirements. Now, Mr. Lorber said his office had received an explanation from FIFA which would be considered. Mr. Warner, who left organised football in 2011, as we've been over before, has said in the past that he had evidence that he was granted World Cup television rights in his region a number of times, including for the 2010 and 2014 events, in return for securing votes for Blatter's campaigns for FIFA president. Wow, this goes deeper, don't it? He said the money made from media rights was used to develop Caribbean football, in inverted commas. FIFA dismissed Mr. Warner's claims as false and said that television rights had nothing to do with Mr. Blatter's election campaigns. Mr. Blatter had not at that time been accused of misconduct by Swiss or US authorities. Now, 17th of September, Switzerland says it has approved the extradition of a Uruguayan football official accused of taking bribes. Eugenio Figueiredo was one of 7 officials with FIFA World Football's governing body, who were arrested in Zurich on May 27th. He is accused of receiving bribes worth millions of dollars relating to Copa America tournament, Switzerland's Federal Office of Justice said. Mr. Figueiredo is a former vice president of the South American Football Confederation, CONMEBOL, and was a vice president of FIFA. The Swiss statement said he was accused of taking bribes from a Uruguayan sports marketing company over the sale of marketing rights to the Copa America tournaments in 2015, 16, 19 and 23, and gaining US citizenship fraudulently by submitting forged medical reports in 2005 and 2006. Now, day later, 18th of September 2015, FIFA General Secretary Jerome Valcke had been put on leave and released from his duties until further notice. A FIFA statement said it had been made aware of a series of allegations involving the Secretary General. Newspaper allegations implicated Jerome Valcke, who's 54, in a scheme to sell World Cup tickets for above face value. The Frenchman, who has had his role at FIFA since 2007, said he denied the fabricated, outrageous allegations. Now, there's still a lot more to this. Football's world governing body has been engulfed by claims of widespread corruption since May, when Swiss police raided a hotel in Zurich and arrested 7 of its top executives. Now, Jerome Valcke has also faced scrutiny in recent months over his role in an alleged $10 million, £6.5 million bribe, an allegation he denies. US prosecutors say the money was paid by South Africa to former Vice President Jack Warner in return for his vote and backing during their successful bid to host the 2010 World Cup. The money is said to have been transferred to Warner from a FIFA bank account after being reappropriated from South Africa's World Cup local organising committee budget. The New York Times and other US media outlets citing US law enforcement sources have claimed Valcke was the high-ranking FIFA official who signed off the payment. Now, Jack Warner's extradition proceedings were approved on September 21st, 2015. The US wants to try Mr. Warner, who's 72, a Trinidadian national, on corruption charges. He is accused of accepting millions of dollars in bribes. He denies the charges and is currently fighting the extradition attempt. Now, the charge sheet for Jack Warner is accused of racketeering, wire fraud, money laundering and bribery. From the early 90s, he allegedly began to leverage his influence and exploit his official positions for personal gain. He's very high up politically in Trinidad and Tobago. Another charge was allegedly accepted a $10 million bribe from South African officials in return for voting to award them the 2010 World Cup, and allegedly bribed officials with envelopes each containing $40,000 in cash. When one demurred, he allegedly said, "There are some people here who think they are more pious than thou. If you are pious, open a church, friends. Our business is our business." Sounds like a suspicious man to me. But 28th of September 2015, Sepp Blatter said he will not stand down as FIFA president because the criminal proceedings opened against him by Swiss investigators. The Swiss, who's 79 years old, is suspected of signing a contract that was unfavourable to FIFA and making a disloyal payment to UEFA president Michel Platini. Of course, I've mentioned before about Platini. It's one of them ones. It's kind of, some things are coming home to roost. But it is one of them ones. Platini, Blatter, who had already said he will stand down in February 2016, claimed he had done nothing illegal or improper. Platini, who's 60, had written a letter at that time to UEFA members denying any wrongdoing. In a statement released through his lawyers, Blatter said a £1.5 million payment made to Platini, the head of European football's governing body in 2011, was valid compensation and nothing more. Both men are also facing investigation by FIFA's Independent Ethics Committee over the payment, which Platini said was for work as Blatter's technical advisor between 1999 and 2002. Platini, who was interviewed as a witness by officers from the Swiss Attorney General's office, stressed that the payment had been fully cleared to the authorities. The Frenchman said, fully declared, sorry. The Frenchman said that he was aware these events may harm my image and reputation, and released a statement for reasons of transparency. Now, 29th of September 2015, Jack Warner had been banned from football for life. It is one of them ones. He's fighting extradition to the US on corruption charges and denies accepting millions of dollars in bribes. At the time, FIFA said Warner had been found guilty of violating the organization's code of ethics several times. The statement read, in his positions as a football official, he was a key player in schemes involving the offer, acceptance and receipt of undisclosed and illegal payments, as well as other money-making schemes. Now, we've already mentioned his charge sheet, and that was what he was charged for. But on the 8th of October 2015, another big moment. Sepp Blatter, Michel Platini and Jerome Valcke suspended. FIFA has provisionally suspended its president Sepp Blatter, Secretary General Jerome Valcke and Vice President Michel Platini for 90 days. The punishments were handed out by the Ethics Committee of Football's world governing body, which is investigating the three over corruption charges. It has also banned ex-FIFA Vice President Chung Mong-jun for 6 years. Issa Hayatou, who heads African Football's Confederation, CAF, will act as FIFA president during Blatter's ban. UEFA European Football's governing body gave Platini its full confidence and said it saw no need to replace its current president while he is suspended from all football activities and duties. Platini and Chung are still hoping to replace Blatter at the top of FIFA when he steps down as president in February. We've talked about that a lot anyway. But Issa Hayatou has issued a statement saying he will only serve on an interim basis and will not be standing for election. Now, it was a statement issued by Blatter's lawyer, said the president was disappointed the ethics committee had not followed its own code in allowing him an opportunity to be heard, and claimed the suspension was based on a misunderstanding of the actions of the Attorney General in Switzerland. Okay, but it added President Blatter looks forward to the opportunity to present evidence that will demonstrate that he did not engage in any misconduct, criminal or otherwise. Former France midfielder Platini described the developments as farcical, with the allegations against him astonishingly vague and based on mere semblances. Platini said he was driven by staunch defiance more than a sense of injustice and desire for revenge to defend himself. He said, I refuse to believe this is a political decision taken in haste in order to taint a lifelong devotee of the game or crush my candidacy for the FIFA presidency. His ban, which can be appealed against or even extended, means he will not be able to attend the Euro 2016 draw in Paris on December 12th. UEFA's executive committee will hold an emergency meeting, and they did, and called for a very rapid final decision from FIFA, but said it stands fully behind Platini. The Football Association reiterated its support for Platini's FIFA presidency bid, and said it would await the results of FIFA's inquiry and Swiss investigation. Now, crisis hit. FIFA should consider a new credible external presidential candidate of high integrity to replace the suspended Sepp Blatter. This is from Thomas Bach of the IOC, International Olympic Committee president. He said FIFA must regain credibility. Now, that's from the 8th of October 2015 as well. Enough is enough. Bach said FIFA must realise that this is now about more than just a list of candidates. This is also a structural problem and will not be solved by simply by the election of a new president. Oh my word, it is one of them ones where Michel Platini on October 15th, 2015, several countries will drop their support for Michel Platini's bid to become the next FIFA president if they do not get assurances over the £1.35 million payment made to him by Sepp Blatter. Outgoing FIFA boss Blatter is under criminal investigation over the 2015 payment, while UEFA President Platini has been questioned about it. The 54 members of European Football's governing body met in Switzerland to discuss the issue. The absence of a written contract detailing the payment has caused several countries to reconsider backing Platini in February's presidential elections. Dutch, German and Danish officials have all gone on the record to say they will be seeking assurances over the payment at the meeting in Nyon. The English Football Association has maintained its unanimous support for Platini, but added it was following the ongoing investigation. Now, 17th of October 2015, starting to get to the tail end of this part of the dog, but 17th of October 2015, the German Football Association, DFB, has categorically rejected allegations of a secret fund to secure votes to host the 2006 World Cup. German news weekly Der Spiegel said a €6.7 million, £4.9 million fund was set up using private money from the late former Adidas boss Robert Louis Dreyfus. Louis Dreyfus. FIFA said in a statement, serious allegations would be investigated while the DFB plans legal action. Germany won the vote by 12 votes to 11, narrowly ahead of South Africa. The DFB categorically rejects the baseless allegations by the publication that the association had paid illicit funds in relation to the 2006 World Cup, the German FA said in a statement. The association also rejects the completely unsubstantiated conclusions that these funds were used to buy votes in exchange for the World Cup. Now, 20th of October 2015, Blatter Platini payment, a conflict of interest. FIFA President Sepp Blatter's payment to UEFA Chief Michel Platini was a conflict of interest, says Domenicalo Scala, chairman of the World Governing Body's Audit and Compliance Committee. In any normal business, there would be a written contract, said Scala. Both parties were members of FIFA's executive committee and knowingly approved each year financial statements, which were incorrect by 2 million Swiss francs, 1.35 million. That could be seen as falsification of the accounts. So that's an interesting one right there. Keep that in mind. FIFA to elect President Sepp Blatter's successor on February 26th. This from October 20th, 2015. World Football's governing body has confirmed it will hold the election for its next president at a special Congress on February 26th. And there are some FIFA reform committee changes proposed as well. They made a number of recommendations for the governing body to make changes to improve efficiency, prevent fraud and conflicts of interest, and increase transparency in the organisation. A 12-person panel chaired by former IOC Director General Francois Carrard, including officials from 6 continental confederations, proposed a maximum term of 12 years for the FIFA president, an age limit of 74, transparency on pay for the president and senior FIFA figures, renaming FIFA's executive committee to FIFA Council. Okay, bit of a pointless one. Increasing separation of the political and management functions within FIFA. Not bad. A review of the number and composition of standing committees, a greater recognition of the role and promotion of women in football. More recommendations will be added before being put to the executive committee in December 2015, prior to FIFA's members approving any changes in February of 2016. Now, 26th October 2015, Franz Beckenbauer admits mistake in 2006 World Cup bid. He denied that votes were bought, but he said he made a mistake in the bidding process to host the World Cup. The 70-year-old said a FIFA proposal should have been rejected. Beckenbauer added that he took responsibility for this mistake. Beckenbauer denied sending money to anyone in order to buy votes in a statement on October 18th, but gave further details after being questioned by a law firm hired by DFB to investigate the claims. He said, in order to get a subsidy from FIFA for the organisation of the 2006 World Cup, those involved went ahead with a proposal from the FIFA Finance Commission that in today's eyes should have been rejected. I, as the president of the then organising committee, bear responsibility of this mistake. Now, 30th of October, moving on. It's mad. The agreement to hand Russia the 2018 World Cup before the vote took place involved big players in FIFA, says President Sepp Blatter's advisor. Klaus Stockholer said there were behind-the-curtain talks involving members of the FIFA Executive Committee. The suspended Blatter has suggested there was an agreement to give the 2018 and 2022 World Cups to Russia and the USA, respectively. The 2022 event was later awarded to Qatar after a swing in the voting. Before the decision was taken in the case of Russia and the USA, there were behind-the-curtain talks, said Stolker, who is acting as Blatter's spokesperson during his 90-day ban. It was not everyone in the FIFA Executive Committee, but it was the big players that had these talks. The head of the organising committee for Russia 2018, Alexei Sorokin, said he was not aware of it being rigged in any way. How can you not be? If there were people who had a clear position on who to vote for, it's their right. They are entitled to that. It's their business to make decisions about world football, Sorokin told World Football Insider in an interview. All I know is we did not know the outcome of the vote until after the vote. Now, 9th of November 2015, German football chief resigns over corruption allegations. The president of the German Football Association, DFB, Wolfgang Niersbach, has said he was taking political responsibility for a €6.7 million, 4.9 million payment to FIFA, and he's actually resigned because of it as well. He said he has always worked cleanly, confidently, and correctly. Now, he will stay on the FIFA committee despite resigning as German Football Association president over bribery allegations. Now, Gianni Infantino That came on the 10th of November 2015. So did this. Gianni Infantino, FIFA presidential candidate Gianni Infantino, said he will withdraw from the race if suspended UEFA boss Michel Platini is allowed to stand. Now, it's one of them was where that's quite odd. But it is one of them ones where my candidacy is not in opposition to Michel Infantino said. If he is able to stand, I will withdraw. It's simply principle. It's a simple principle of loyalty. But right now, I am a candidate 100% and I'm moving forward. Not only for Europe, but for world football. Okay. Well, 11th of November 2015. Football Association Chairman Greg Dyke has questioned if any World Cup bid has been won without a pile of bungs. He said it's like the Archers. Every week something is happening. You begin to be convinced that almost no World Cups have been allocated without a pile of bungs. Now, nations are actually seeking compensation over this. The Dutch and the Belgian bids and also England are seeking legal advice over whether to claim compensation for the cost of their respected failed bids. Now, Sepp Blatter on Thursday 12th of November 2015 had been discharged from the hospital where he was admitted for a checkup after feeling unwell. He had to stay a few days in hospital, but now he is at home. He is very happy and he is relaxing for a few days until the beginning of next week, and then he will be back. Stolker said in an interview on Thursday. Now, apparently he had a small emotional breakdown. So it's one of them was, but very interesting. When we posted this on the social networks, Jesse Whittock, an old college mate of mine, who actually went to the same college as myself and Jesse, he said about that small breakdown thing. Do you think this is anything but the first step in the plan to make sure Blatter is medically unfit to stand trial? Keep that in mind, because Ganesh Thapa, on 16th of November 2015, and that is today, an influential figure in Asian football has been banned for 10 years by FIFA for bribery. Nepal Football Association president and ex-Asian football vice president Thapa, who's 55, was found guilty of various acts of misconduct over several years. He is also under investigation by Nepalese authorities for allegedly embezzling millions of pounds of football development money. Lao Football Federation chief Vipet Sihachkar was given a 2-year ban. FIFA said he had solicited and accepted a payment from another football official in relation to the 2011 elections for the FIFA Executive Committee at the Asian Football Confederation Congress. And breathe. Gezzie Fizzle, look, I know that's a lot to take in, but your views on this, I mean, it's a mess. In the words of Jim Cornette, for me, it's an effing circus. Jesse, what do you recommend?
Well, to me, it's a hot pile of mess. You know, that's the best way for me to put it. It's a hot pile of mess. It's a steaming, stinking pile of mess, right? Because when you look at it, right, if there really is nothing wrong, okay, if there's nothing going on, everything's above board, as is, consistently claimed, right? Why are these people being arrested? That's the first question I ask. My second thing is I find Sepp Blatter's small emotional breakdown quite interesting as well. Just timing. Just timing. I think, it is excellent timing for it to happen. And of course, when you bear in mind, he is going to have to stand trial at some point. If he is medically unfit, then it's a good reason for him to get away scot-free, right?
Yeah, it's a brilliant reason. It's like pleading insanity. It's essentially, which I think is where Jesse's kind of going with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the next best thing for you to do. So I don't know, right? And then of course, wasn't there one of the suggestions about age? as well, in terms of how you go and improve FIFA. So you go and say, well, look, he's old. He's probably demented. Right? And, you know, you kind of lean into those parts of neurology and human psychology and everything else, right? Where it really starts to get technical and you're really going into grey areas. But, you know, it's... there is so much more to this that has even come out right now. It's scary. It's scary. And if you're having other people go and admitting to say, well, yeah, actually there were some practices that happened before, that if they happen now, they'd be rejected. And yes, the money was being passed around. As I say, I think this rabbit hole goes a lot deeper. A lot deeper. And the other thing to mention as well, in regards to all of this, that, you know, I personally found quite interesting, is the fact that certain countries want their money back. Right? And I just thought, hang on a minute. Really? You want your money back? Because here's the interesting bit. The countries that won aren't asking for their money back. Right? So if they're not asking for their money back, and if they did win, right, we're talking about Belgium, Holland, and of course England, if either one of those won, they wouldn't be asking for their money back either. Right? The only reason why you're asking for your money back is because you lost.
But then if it comes, but then imagine you'd spend like 10, 20 million on a bid, and then you come back and facts come out later that bid was nowhere near above board. If you lose it, you are well within your rights to say, wait, hold on a minute.
I'm not saying not to be upset about it. Of course, be upset about it, right? But you're playing the game to win. That's like saying, okay, I'm going to go and buy a lottery ticket, right? And because I didn't win, I want my pound back. No. Or £2, depending on you know, which version of the lottery you play. No. Right? The moment you decided to put money in it, you're in it. It's as simple as that. Now, whether or not the game's crooked or not, that's for you to figure out and then decide, is it still worth me putting my money in? But as I say, once you put your money in, sorry, that's just how it works.
But then it's one of them ones though. I think it's a case of like we've discussed before. If you're gonna rail up against corruption, don't do it. Don't just do it because you got shafted. Do it for the good of the game. Don't just come out and shoot your mouth off and say, "Oh, the game's corrupt because I got shafted." No, say that the game's corrupt because there's legitimate proof that it's corrupt. I mean, we had no involvement. We had no quote unquote vested interest in the awarding of the 2018 and 2022 World Cups, but at the end of the day, we saw from day one that there was collusion, and you could see it when there's two bids at once. How the hell could you not expect collusion? And so it's one of them. Was this whole thing is an absolute circus. I mean, Blatter saying yeah, I'm gonna resign, and then reneging on the deal. For me personally, that guy's as crooked as Massimo Cellino. The only thing is, Blatter's never been found guilty for it. It's one of them ones, whereas Cellino's been caught two times. It's one of them ones. You got to look at Massimo Cellino as a stupid criminal and Blatter as potentially a criminal genius. Potentially. I say potentially in regards to both of them, because like I ain't having no defamation of character crap coming back. But yeah, but for me the fact of the matter is, with this whole FIFA thing, it's an absolute farce wrapped up in a circus, wrapped up in a joke, and not even a funny one. The whole thing is absolutely stupid. I mean, you got Blatter trying to claim, oh yeah, I'm not well now. It's like, oh okay, yeah, okay. Jesse Whittack, I think, was spot on in terms of, hey, this might be the beginnings of him claiming that he's not well enough to stand trial. That's a very interesting theory. I mean, but one thing that's interesting to me is that news that came out today about Ganesh Thapa. 10-year ban for him, for bribery, but you've got other people who, like say Jack Warner, who there's evidence linking him to bribes, but no 10-year ban. That's what strikes me as a bit odd. And this little payment between Blatter and Platini is suspect as well. That's more than a conflict of interest. So it's one of them. Gianni Infantino actually kind of annoyed me with his comments, actually. What's it? Yeah, if my candidacy is not in opposition to Michel, if he is able to stand, I will withdraw. It's a simple principle of loyalty. So essentially, you're a puppet. Essentially, Gianni Infantino is a puppet. Because if his puppet master, Michel Platini, is able to run, he's just going to stand aside. So essentially, you're not running for the good of football. You say, I'm a candidate 100% and I'm moving forward not only for Europe but for world football. If your convictions run that deep, then whether Platini's going to run or not, you should still run. That means you're a stooge. That means you're an idiot. You're a stooge. You're an idiot. You're a moron. Because it's basically Massa Platini. Oh, you're able to run, Massa. I'll step out of the way for you, boss. Here you go, boss. Take my place, boss. This is essentially what it is. For me, that is exactly what Gianni Infantino is. There's no point in him even running then. Because if he's saying, I'm 100% for Europe and for the future of world football, you wouldn't step aside. You'd run against him because you believe that you're the best candidate for the job. So essentially, you are a placeholder. That is all Infantino is. And this is
literally, and again, took the words right out of my mouth.
And again, this is not what we need in football. We need revolution. Then once we have a revolution, we can talk about evolution. And with presidency candidates like this running, these stooges, these J-Brones and placeholders, we ain't never going to get any changes. We are never going to get any changes in the world of football. And it's sad. It really is. I mean, the chairman of the IOC saying, there needs to be change. Of course there does. I mean, the IOC have their own thing to worry about, and Russia suspended and all that. But this whole thing about, the agreement to hand Russia the 2018 World Cup before the vote took place wouldn't surprise me. And behind the curtain talk saying Russia and USA being awarded it, you might want to replace USA with Qatar, to be perfectly frank. Because there's no way someone like Qatar can come out of nowhere and just be like, right, yeah, we're winning it. And it's like, wait, hold on a second. USA were promised it and Qatar got it? Where the hell did that come from? What is Vince Russo booking this? Swerve after swerve after swerve? What the hell is this? It wouldn't surprise me if there were behind the curtain talks, because as we've said on a number of occasions, when it came out, there may have been collusion. May have been. No, mate. It's clear there was collusion. When you do two votes at once, there's not going to be anything but collusion. Morons. But I mean, Sepp Blatter's successor will apparently be elected by FIFA on February 26th. Yeah, we'll see. It would be one of them. It wouldn't surprise me if Platini was cleared, he was able to run, and he won it. Because he's been setting himself up for it for the past year or two anyway. As we've mentioned on previous PT shows, he's been burying Blatter just to set himself up for that, in my opinion. I mean, this thing about World Cup vote bribes, again, not surprising. Disappointingly, it is not surprising. And UEFA nations discussing their support of Platini's FIFA bid. But if this dude's under investigation, there's a reason why he's under investigation. So in theory, instead of our own FA saying, we unanimously support him, but we're keeping an eye on the investigation, why didn't you just say we're keeping an eye on the investigation and we're going to make a decision when the investigation is concluded? Again, there's collusion and corruption there in my view. Because if someone was under investigation, in theory, you would want to distance yourself from that as an entity such as the FA. You would the smart thing to do would be, you know what? I'm going to take this from a standpoint of rationale. Until this investigation is done, we're not going to say anything. We're going to keep an eye on it, and then we're going to take our stand once the investigation is concluded. But at this moment, we're not going to go one side or the other. That would be the smart way. But I've never accused our FA of being Mensa candidates. It's one of them. Was the FIFA presidential race is a joke. As said, we got Infantino there, who's basically a puppet. So it's not really much of a point. Blatter, Platini and Valka being suspended. Yeah, Blatter apparently is coming to the end of his run anyway. So you're basically pushing him. You're basically letting him jump before he's pushed. So that really is a pointless suspension. He's doing bugger all anyway. Jack Warner getting banned from football for life. It's not surprising, to be perfectly frank. And it's the whole thing. I said the whole thing is just an absolute joke. I mean, this media rights deal being probed by the Swiss, anything Jack Warner's in just smells like crap to me, personally. And it's just, I just find it funny that Warner gets banned for life for his involvement in kind of those charges that we mentioned earlier. Fapper gets a 10-year ban. If he's involved in bribery, why not ban him for life? Why not ban him for life? He's bringing the game into disrepute. Ban him for life. It's bribery. Ban him for life. It's just as bad as match fixing. It's just as much of a plague as match fixing. Don't put out these nickel and dime bans. If you want to weed stuff out, ban those who are corrupt. Ban those who are taking bribes. Ban them for life, not for 2 years or 10 years. Ban them. Just ban them forever and don't let them come anywhere near the game because they're ruining it. This whole thing's got my blood pressure up again.
But, I have to agree with you. While, you simmer down a little bit, remember your pressure points, right? But I will say this. If they really are intent on cleaning up the game, like you said, all the people that are involved in any kind of corruption whatsoever, ban them all. And as we say, let's punish them uniformly and in a draconian fashion. And in this case, it has to be severe. Lifetime bans for all of them. Problem solved. These people cannot come back and get involved in the game again whatsoever. Right? As I say, we'll just cut off the Godhead. That's what we'll do. We'll cut it off. Right? And we'll start afresh. So everybody involved. Bye. We'll build something new. All entirely. But, I think at the same time, while we talk about that, it's going to be much more difficult to do in actual practice than it is in principle, because the other part that we're not really talking about here is the bit where we mention, certain placeholders, like Infantino. Right? What's to say that there's not going to be a rise of the placeholders? Because there probably is. The influence goes a long way. So you probably have to get rid of those people as well.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
It's a complete reform.
And then I'd say, how far does their influence go? Because you don't want anybody associated with any of those people. Right? So, essentially what we're talking about is taking the building, gutting it completely, right? And then rebuilding it in your own image.
Of course.
That's what we're talking about if we're going to talk about the restructure of FIFA.
But for
Gut
me,
the entire building and come up with something totally new.
But for me, the thing is, it's got to be done. If it's going to be done, it's got to be done right, and it's got to be done right from day one. You can't build something on shaky foundations and expect it to hold for decades or hundreds of years because the foundations are shaky. You can't build a castle on sand. That's where I'm going. So
no, you're right, and as I say, this is the part where it gets tricky, right? Because then I say to you, and this is the devil's advocate part of it, right? For all of what we're saying about let's essentially gut the organization and essentially build a new one, or just decommission the existing one and build a new one. Who leads the new one?
That's exactly, that's the next question I was going to ask. And
unless, of course,
sadly, there's not really anyone putting their money where their mouth is and stepping up.
This is it.
The David Ginola thing was nothing but a PR exercise from Paddy Power. I am still convinced on that. That's why I never supported it, and it was a joke. And not even a funny one. It's like, if you're gonna run for FIFA and try and be the president and the head of world football, be serious about it. We don't need stupid bids. We don't need stupid PR exercises. The game is already in enough of a screwed position. But it's one of them ones. But Gezzie, did you want to finish your point before we ask who's calling?
Yeah, as I say, the biggest issue that I have, especially when we play devil's advocate with this scenario, is who takes over. Now, unless Pitch Talk gets, nominated, okay, as a panel to go and lead this thing, I don't know how it's going to work. I really don't. But in all seriousness, though, there needs to be legit candidates capable of taking over after the decommission of the existing FIFA body, shall we say. And right now, at this present moment in time, I personally don't see that there are any individuals that are capable of doing that, either as individuals or forming an entity that's capable of doing that right now at this present moment in time.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think it would have to be a collective entity to have the stroke and to have the wherewithal to be like to basically not necessarily cover each other's weaknesses, but to see it from 3 different angles and come to one decision, or 4 different angles, or however many the case would be. But it would be a case of I don't think it could be done by one person, because we've seen one person run FIFA for nearly 20 years and look how bad things have gone. So maybe it's time instead of having a head like Vince McMahon in wrestling to go for a booking committee like WCW used to have. I don't know, maybe.